I'm back to talk about a friend who is going through a breakup. And I'm reminded about the times of heartbreak in my life when I had to pull myself together and locate some kind of safe place within my mind. And in those times, I was able to find not only the voice of my inner person, who ultimately became a savior for me, and the relationship that developed and who I became after those times was so much better, just a higher level of living, less sort of unwanted behaviors and thoughts and feelings, and more self responsibility and joy and purpose and freedom. And so I wanted to come and talk about heartbreak and primal encounter. So everyone's different, so this is just my experience. But I see these facts related through great literature, modern pop music, entertainment, the general conversations that are happening in the realm of psychotherapy, the conversations that are being had in the realm of religion and recovery. And these are the places where I do pay attention, and I am looking for threads of truth. So I want to describe, I come here generally to talk about primal encounter. So primal encounter is the love relationship that happens within one's person between two discrete projections of self, one being the outer normal everyday self, and the other a more eternal and you could say godly, or it is somehow an otherworldliness or a spiritualness to it, but it doesn't need to have those words assigned to it. I think this primal self, which is unique to everybody, it isn't the same for everyone. My primal self is uniquely mine, and that's an important component because we're not just meeting some universal God. We're not meeting some historical person, Jesus. We're meeting our actual personal self, which is incorruptible and indestructible and unrepeatable, unreducible. It has all the qualities that are used to describe a great lover or God or a Messiah. It has all these qualities, but not in isolation. If we continue to alienate our inner self, we will never know its power and its nature and its commitment to us. So normally I come to talk about primal encounter, but today I also want to discuss another set of, I would say, facts that we all know are true, if we're paying attention, and if we are paying attention to history and literature and art. These other parts or other human experiences which are different from the primal self. And we could call them, if we wanted to name them, we could call them sort of sub-primal selves, or contingent selves, or aspects, or inner selves. And they are typically experienced as desperate, in pain, full of complaint, full of outrage. They might be very keyed to certain specific types of social experiences, like being misunderstood or being dissed. They might come out in great power during tumultuous relationship problems with lovers, especially. They can come out in sexual ways, sexual deviance, or sexual frustrations of different kinds. They can manifest in a lot of different ways, addictions and compulsions and just generalized dysfunction of self. And what I would say about there's a relationship, there's a connectedness, I guess. There's a push and pull between the primal self and these other sort of alienated selves, because one on one side is a provider of perfect resonance and safety and love and passion and power and freedom, and also humility and being well placed, knowing how to harmonize. There's a fearlessness within that primal self. But the alternate selves, which might be called like an inner child or an inner woman if you're a man, or an inner man if you're a woman, or I suppose there could be any of those types, but I think at least an inner child and an inner animus or anima of the opposite gender are living in isolation and pain. They are not a source of love. They are not a source of truth, or a reliable source of truth. Of course, they have their own truth and their own version of love, but it is not a wholesome, holistic, virtuous one. It's one that would sacrifice all other parts of the self to get what it thinks it needs. It would sacrifice one's own great plans and great relationships that one has to get what it needs. It is not a love that can put itself in a sacrificial position, but rather love for them is the great need for attention, the great need for understanding, the great need for companionship, but a driven need, a complex and paranoid and just a kind of horrific, monstrous need. And but it has its own note. It has its own purity of form, such that it is pure and it seems unavoidable. It feels urgent and necessary. And I think that religious people and healthy religious people and good psychologists would say that these parts are not negotiable, in the sense that an effort to exclude them or to pretend they don't exist is not a wise way to go, because they will hide and then come out at times when there is so much at stake, and they can ruin people. Ruin people's plans and relationships with one small action or word. So it's important that we calculate their needs and their agenda when we are seeking for health and wholeness. So the experience of heartbreak is something I want to bring to the front right now because while I am advocating for primal encounter, I will say that this primal encounter relationship of personal love and personal wholeness does have a sort of a contingency because we have to account for the kind of the inner dysregulated parts of ourself. And when I say account for them, I don't mean that we let them lead our life, but we do have to, in some regards, fully engage them. But we don't want to fully engage them in such a way that we become overwhelmed. We don't want to fully engage them in a way that we give them full control of our body or our mind. But we do want to hear them out. We do want to know who is there and what we're dealing with. So even though they might be advocating for something very selfish and very even perverse, but we still need to hear them out, what it is that they might think is best for them or for you or for oneself. And in my experience, encountering Prime in some ways requires giving them a voice. It's almost a prerequisite to meeting one's inner self because the mind has to have the space to enter the relationship with the primal self, to come to primal encounter. There has to be a clear landing place within the mind for the higher self to make itself known and make its love and its attitude and its voice be heard. So in my case, and I think in the case of many who do the 12-step program, for example, the first 3 steps involve, well, let's just stick with the first step, involves very much a kind of a reckoning with the alternate selves or the subprime beings, these sort of personalities that have a kind of a monstrous and destabilizing force about them. And they have some access to our mind and body, even without us wanting them to. They will cause us to feel jealousy when jealousy isn't really needed, or anger when anger isn't really needed, or fear when fear isn't really needed, or lust in the sense of I must have this kind of material substance, or I must have this kind of behavior, or I must have this kind of person, or I must have this kind of relationship, or this kind of regard by other people. Those inner selves can be fiercely hungry, particularly when they are ignored. So there has to be an accounting, and in my experience, this accounting cannot be done by anyone else. It's got to be done by oneself, and this takes a lot of courage in the sense that in doing this, we will be attempting something that no one has shown us before, and something that no one can do in our place, and something that has never been done before. It's one's own unique journey. It's an unrepeatable experience. And we in society are bred in many ways to be people of resemblance, people of imitation. But that won't cut it. We're not imitating here. We are standing on the precipice of something unknown, and we are kind of calling out into the void in some regard. So there is no practice that we can do that will guarantee that we will encounter our primal self, or that we will be able to encounter our other inner selves. I've got to get a better label for it, but we have to take the steps to move forward and do those things. For me, thank God I found people who were doing this certain practice, and it wasn't the practice itself that made the change, but it was the this practice will present an opportunity for you to have an encounter with your lower selves, your higher selves, self, or whatever you want to call it. So that practice is one of writing, and it's one of just this phrase that I heard in the big book of AA, the practice of rigorous honesty. So I can just say, in my case, I did work with a sponsor for some period of time, and I found myself, frankly, distracted oftentimes by the differences between the way my sponsor saw things and the way I saw things. And it was an obstruction. It felt obstructive to me. But also, I was given guidance by a sponsor how to approach the steps, and I was not able to do what he was asking me to do, which was to sit, to report about my reality. What is my frame of mind? What is really going on in my mind? How do I feel? Those alone were so difficult for me in recovery. So it wasn't until much later, when I wasn't in the program and I had resolved more or less the reason I was there in the first place, when I discovered that we have to engage our own story, our own self, with kind of a it's recalling the moment of just doing this for the first time is it's challenging, because it flipped a switch for me, and it made such a difference in my life. And I'm trying to recall the experience. And I was in a very specific type of social situation at that time, where a lot was being asked of me by someone I really cared about, and I wanted to do well, but I couldn't give what I didn't have. And I finally had to admit, like, I'm at my end. Like, I don't have the resources for this. But I wanted so much to be present and make a difference in this person's life who was in a kind of a life and death struggle at that time. And I finally found this practice of this rigorous honesty, and kind of just writing simply, these are my actual feelings right now. This is what I'm scared of. And then putting that forward as if on an altar inside of my mind, and saying, okay, these are the things that are obstructing me from showing up as much as I want to. I do not have the quality of character and heart to deal with these fears and these worries and these doubts. But if I was willing to write them down and name them and put them on the altar of my mind, and ask for my inner self, my primal self, to engage with me, to kind of, if I put those forward and just kind of offer them out and allow my mind to receive something new, I found that my primal self, my inner man, I've called him my inner man for years, and I've started to call him kind of a primal self, because for a lot of reasons involving the word prime that I think are very important, in that it's a recognition of the unrepeatableness and the indivisibleness of this entity or this encounter. I lost my sentence, but I just came to the point of now being ready to use my, how can I say, use my, all the tools that I had been using on trails that other people have walked before me. I took those and I said, okay, I'm going to go kind of spelunking down this hole that it really is just mine, and I'm the only one who can go down it, so I'm going to do it myself. Once I made that choice to really name what was going on, the response of my inner self was, I could say, practically immediate and permanently changed me in such a way that I am, I'm what I can say, resolved of the fear, or what's the word? I am no longer under the impression that my well-being can collapse at any moment due to any kind of overwhelm from any kind of challenge or coming from within myself or outside myself. I feel that I have a process by which I can encounter my primal self, and through which I can feel the love and have the power and the will to do whatever is required of me. And it's a process. I'm still in the process, but I can't help but when I get when I get such a call from a friend who's been through heartbreak, and I reflect on the heartbreak, and I think about how really in every case for me, that heartbreak was a precious gift because it illuminated my own ignorance that I had put so much power in another person to determine my well-being. And I think once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you now see it in all things. You see how you did that with our education system growing up, or you did it with the doctor when you were sick, or you did it with the priest when you were looking to grow spiritually, or with the therapist. And we put so much into those relationships because we are kind of all trained to conform and to walk along paths that have been walked before with the help of somebody. So the heartbreak, in my case, has illuminated me in the sense that I see how, we're kind of wired to do this because we are a product of our environment and of our ancestry, that we and we're raised by people who didn't discover their primal self. So we are sort of trained by just culture and our environment that someone will come along and make us whole, this concept. Or I was feeling really dicey, so I went to a therapist. Or I was sinning a lot, so I went to recovery, or I went to a priest. We have this kind of notion that we should be seeking a person to make us whole. And so I just came to reflect on that this morning when my friend was telling me about their heartbreak. I couldn't help but to think, lucky you, because now you can undo a lot of your presumptions about where happiness and love is actually coming from. And you can also come face to face with your own kind of hungry monsters inside of yourself. And I don't want to call them monsters in the sense of that they are something we want to kill or get rid of, but their behavior can be monstrous. So our inner child, our inner woman or man who needs attention, that heartbreak will put you right in the place to have primal encounter and also to have a kind of, I don't know, primal reset, but also what I kind of have come to think of as like a primal court. So a court is a place where different voices can come together and come to agreement and come to understanding. So in terms of primal encounter, I think that what also happens, because you feel safe and you feel loved, you can actually hold court with your inner selves. You can hear what it is that they're going through and what they're struggling with. And you can also work with them about what is a good solution. Will it really help if you take that one more drink? Will it really help if you seek out this kind of behavior? Is that going to really set the record straight for you, or can we do better? And I think once we take these, sort of shadow selves into account and take them seriously and treat them with respect and with genuine love, then we see just a dramatic reduction in static in our mind, static and loud and painful noises playing through the radio. We don't want that. So I'm afraid that I feel I must come here whenever I need to, because I myself am resetting my relationship to the world and to myself, and I like to call out when I see situations that would help illustrate what I mean by primal encounter. And so I came here to do that.